important person in South Carolina right now because we have a lot of guys out meeting Saturday night that we need to get back by the following Saturday. And Clint and his crew in the training room did an amazing job. And we'll have to release our injury report just like every other team in the SEC does here this evening. And when ours comes out, it's going to say that everyone is cleared and ready to play except for Judge Collier. He won't play on Saturday, but other than that, everyone's back and ready to roll.
And that's exactly what it looked like last night as, again, earlier on in the week, we're very concerned with a lot of guys that were either banged up or didn't play against South Carolina State this past weekend. But as of right now, they'll have another injury report prior to the game, tomorrow. It is Judge Collier as being out, dealing with his knee issue. But Brady Hunt's been moved to probable. He's somebody we thought we might actually be lost for a little while, but thankfully that's moved in a positive direction. So all things considered, a pretty decent bill of health for South Carolina heading into this game where, again, you're going to need all hands on deck for a very scrappy Vandy team.
What's the spread right now?
Last I looked was 3.5.
3.5. Why did I get 7? I don't know, but I think this is a real statement opportunity. I mean, this is easily the most arduous challenge South Carolina is going to have to this point. They've got to they can't clown around anymore on offense. That's a fact. They can't clown around anymore. Now, but how much can we lay at the feet of injuries for that, Tyler? For the way the offense has performed through the first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, there's some element of that. I don't think they would use that as an excuse necessarily, but you can't ignore those kind of things. Again, Shed Surratt didn't play in the first game starting last week, as a true freshman, which is obviously, daunting challenge for anyone. Brady Hunt obviously got hurt, and he seemed to be kind of one of the favorite targets of Lenore Sellers, kind of taking over that Josh Simon type of role at the tight end spot. And again, sounds like he's good to go. But hopefully you have what you need, especially offensively. Now, Judge Collier on the defensive side of things, as one of your starting cornerbacks, definitely a big loss, but they've been operating with him for basically the entire season, save for about the first half of that game against Virginia Tech. So it's not like this is something that happened, on Wednesday and they're scrambling. Like, they've been pretty used to having other guys fill that spot, Miles Norwood, Vakari Swain, guys like that. So you would think they'd be pretty prepared for this going into this weekend.
Did you see Robbie Ashford last night?
I did, yeah. They got off to a good start. The things kind of trended back in the other direction in the second half as Wake Forest couldn't really kind of get out of their own way and make any things happen offensively, and NC State came back and won the game.
The food truck caught on fire.
I did see the food truck catching on fire. That is, listen, ACC football belongs on Thursday nights. I just think there's a charm to it. And when you tell me that there's a food truck on fire, or at least billowing heavy smoke in the parking lot that probably made the entire stadium smell like whatever they were cooking, I'm like, makes perfect sense.
I covered the ACC for a long time, specifically Wake Forest for a long time. And that burning food truck was the most exciting thing I've seen happen in that town. No, in all seriousness, I'm cool with the ACC being on Thursday night.
Sure.
I think it's a sad state of affairs, though, when they celebrate how many Friday night games they're going to have.
Yeah,
it tells me it tells me you're grasping.
Yeah, well,
you're grasping.
It tells me that people aren't trying to watch you on Saturdays. You're trying to find alternative windows where there isn't as much going on. We'll get to the ACC and all things going on coming up a little bit later on in the show here. But getting back to Carolina and Vanderbilt, this is a game, as we've talked about a lot this week, where if Sellers is going to have, the reins taken off of him, this is the game, right? Like, don't hold anything back. Okay, you got past Virginia Tech where maybe you didn't let him use his feet. You didn't really need that last week against South Carolina State. But if there's any opportunity to let him go out there and be Lenore Sellers like people have been clamoring for so far this year, tomorrow's the day, because you're going to need the best version of him to beat this Vanderbilt team.
I'm wondering, though, let's say they go out and it's another mediocre performance. I mean, at what point is there a change? And I'm not saying you fire Mike Shula, but I'm saying they've got to go back to what was working before, because it doesn't seem to me, it's not a talent issue. We know that.
Sure.
And we still see glimpses of the Lenore Sellers we were expecting going into this year. But at what point does Shane say, all right, we need to run this back a little bit and maybe look at what Dow Loggins was doing that was working? And, we appreciate him way more in hindsight now.
No, absolutely. And he let Sellers be Sellers. And Shula has not shied away from the fact that he's trying to develop Sellers overall as a quarterback, which part of that includes staying in the pocket, going through your reads, and trying to make things happen, with the downfield passing game and stuff like that. But at the same time, we have very much noticed that the use of his athletic ability has not quite been on display as much this year, and even going back to the bowl game last year against Illinois as many people would like. And again, maybe it is playing your cards close to the vest to not put a lot of stuff out there on tape. But if we do come away from the game this weekend with the same struggles on offense, especially if they lose, then it kind of becomes of, okay, why are we ignoring this very important asset of the offense from a year ago?
Well, I mean, what's the whole point of the game? To win.
Yeah, it is.
What was it, Herm Edwards? To play to win.
Play to win the game. Yes.
So that was obviously happening when he was being Lenore Sellers. I'm all for developing him as a quarterback, this, that, and the other, but there's just certain things that you don't mess with. There's no telling how many thoughts he's put into Lenore Sellers' head. It's like getting a golf lesson in the middle of a round. You don't do it.
Yeah.
You don't do it. And I don't understand why they're trying to fix something that's not really broken. I mean, it wasn't broken. The dude was unbelievable. But what we're seeing out there now is a guy who's hesitant. It's a guy who's second-guessing himself. And I'm afraid that it might end up being permanent damage if they can't figure this out quickly. What is going on?
We'll see what's on display tomorrow night. We'll get into some specifics of this matchup, take a look at things from the Vanderbilt side of the perspective coming up next as the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina rolls along. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier under Football Friday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Ed, Scott Hamilton, Captain Dave hanging out with you on your Football Friday here on the game. As we head into the third game, the Loyola-Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest is back. Online at 1075thegame.com. Register if you've not already. And if the Gamecocks score another special teams touchdown this weekend, you could win $100. Goes up by $100 every single game. We already gave away $200 earlier on this morning, thanks to Vakari Swain's multiple punt returns to start the season. Real quick before we get into the Vanderbilt side of things, the law of averages and general football knowledge tells you there's no way Vakari Swain's going to have a third straight game with a punt return touchdown. But you know what? Until I see proven otherwise, I'm going to believe it's going to happen.
I'm disappointed that I cannot find him listed on any Heisman odds or and you can bet on anything in this world. I'm sure I can get somebody to give me some kind of, off the cuff odds, but I really did. I scoured lots of different sites, Bet MGM, all those, and he's not on any list. How can you not do that? Because to your point, until he doesn't do it tomorrow, he's actually more likely to do it. Yeah, he's 2 for 2.
You give, in terms of like most difficult touchdowns to score, punt return has got to be maybe number 1, close to it.
Punt return, kickoff return.
Is a kickoff return or a punt return more difficult?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of it in my head. Maybe the kickoff return, because they're usually longer. Maybe.
Yeah, well, I feel like you get less opportunities because touchbacks are up by so much. I will say, I feel as though when the blocks are done right, which is the case in both instances, I feel like you are more likely to see a kickoff return touchdown than a punt return touchdown.
Maybe he does that next.
Maybe, well, he's not returning kickoffs right now, but heck, why not? Throw him back there, see what happens.
Why is he not?
Because Harbor's returning him, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's a whole different animal.
Yeah,
by the way, I like your beard.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I need to shave again, but it's been like a week.
You look like you should be in a boy band, like the guy who has the jaw beard and all that. You could be that guy.
Okay, yeah. Listen, I was a big NSYNC fan back in the day, so maybe I can fill the Joey Fatone role, I guess.
This is not a joke. I'm not joking with you. I watched the Kentucky Derby with Joey Fatone one year.
All right.
Millionaires Row.
Okay.
That is a true story.
Did you ask him to sing to you?
No. He was actually really cool.
Missed opportunity.
We weren't like together. We were just standing next to each other.
Oh, okay. All right. You made it sound like you were like friends, like we're hanging out with Joey Fatone.
We didn't limo there or anything.
No,
he might have limoed. I rode a golf cart.
Yeah, that's true. But anyways, where were we?
Vakari Swain winning the Heisman.
Vakari Swain winning the Heisman. Yes, if he's able to return a punt in every single game this year for a touchdown, then there should be no question he should win the Heisman Trophy. Don't think it's going to happen, but again, until proven otherwise, I'm going to keep believing this train's going to roll.
Okay, let's ask ourselves this. Let's throw this out there.
All right.
What is the floor for minimum number of punt return touchdowns that one person would need in order to win the Heisman Trophy? 6?
Well, it also depends. To me, it also depends on what else you're doing. I feel like you have to be more than just the punt returner. Like, Christian McCaffrey had some really good return numbers, but he was also a really great running back when he was at Stanford. Like, I feel like you have to supplement the special. I feel like if you're weighing on the Heisman Trophy ballot what matters most to a voter, special team stuff is important, but it's not going to make up even like a third of the pie. I feel like it's really what you're doing on either offense or defense. And if you're doing stuff on special teams on top of that, oh, that's great, but that's not what they're looking for.
As a Heisman voter, I will tell you that I think it has to be put into context of what it means to the team. For instance, Vakari Swain was pretty much all the offense, all the scoring for South Carolina the other night.
It was.
So if these returns are the difference in tight games, then I think that you have to look at it through a different set of lenses.
Fair point.
If a guy, I'm going to tell you right now, if a team goes 9-3 and they have a guy who returns 6 kicks, 7 kicks, and we're just spitballing here for touchdowns, and those are consequential scores. They're not always coming against South Carolina State. No disrespect.
Yep.
You have to consider him. Devin Hester was probably the most lethal weapon, one of the most lethal weapons in history.
Sure.
The guy's in the Hall of Fame, right? Or
That's
going in the Hall of Fame?
Yep, 4-4, mainly, special teams type stuff. So you make a good point. We got a lot of football to be played between now and then, but special teams is an interesting angle of this game, and it's not as great as it would be if Swain were able to return another touchdown. It's not just that. It's getting good returns, it's flipping field position, setting your offense up in positions to succeed. Unfortunately, last week, Carolina started backed up on those first 3 drives back towards their own goal line, and that's not the reason, maybe the specific reason why they went 3 and out on every single drive to start the game, but that certainly didn't help, and you can't afford to do those kind of things against a team like Vanderbilt that's going to control the ball, control the clock, and try and limit your possession. So setting the offense up in good field position is obviously going to be vital. You have a couple of good returners with Vanderbilt, and Junior Sherrill had a kickoff return touchdown last year against Tennessee. Martell Height, who does play both ways for the Commodores, had the best average punt return in the SEC last year. You have a really good punter that's only had to punt twice so far this year back in their first game. So they're a team, while maybe not as well known as South Carolina when it comes to their special teams prowess, they're really, really good, and that's something that could be vitally important tomorrow as well.
The number I'm looking at right now is 74 or 11 penalties against Virginia Tech.
Yes, they are a little undisciplined to start the year. Now, Carolina's not without their own problems in that area, but Vandy's had a little bit of trouble with the penalties so far.
And they had 2 turnovers. And then Virginia Tech turned those into points. So, again, South Carolina's got to be careful with the football.
Well, and Vandy last year was really good at holding on to the ball. They only had 7 turnovers the entire year. And then last week they had 2 in their first 3 drives there. One, an interception on a bad throw by Pavia, and then Cedric Alexander fumbled on the 3rd drive there. That was very uncharacteristic of them. Obviously, you're taking on a Carolina defense that's really opportunistic and good at taking the ball away. And God, if you tell me Carolina gets 2 turnovers tomorrow night, I feel pretty good about their chances.
How many do they have so far this year?
Let's see.
5?
The interception, 2 interceptions against Virginia Tech. I can actually look this up if I take 2 seconds to do it. You've had multiple ones in both games. Hold on.
So I mean that's obviously going to be a huge factor in all this.
Carolina has 3. Carolina has 3 on the season. You just had the fumble recovery last week.
So now they have to just figure out how to get Vanderbilt to cough it up.
Exactly. You get them to cough it up. Make Diego Pavia put it on the ground or punch it out from one of the receivers and take advantage of it. Again, it's not going to be easy to do, but they showed you last week they do have those kind of tendencies where things can go wrong a little bit, and I think Carolina's a better defense than what Virginia Tech is. So hopefully they can capitalize on that kind of stuff too.
I wonder if there's going to be a bro moment, though, between Diego Pavia and Razul Faizan. Hey, man.
Well, they can get together and talk about their eligibility pursuits.
Let's tell these kids about what it was like back in 2017.
Well, here's the thing: is like Pavia's, his was pretty seamless. I mean, he just sued the NCAA, got the not the waiver, but got the what do you call it? Where while the thing was still pending, he was going to be eligible. Injunction. That's right, the injunction. And Faison had to go through, broken glass and salt mines to get his eligibility.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand. I think they were so embarrassed by how easily Pavia got his injunction that they made it so arduous for Faison.
Well, and again, they call it the Pavia rule. You look on Faison's Gamecock online profile, it says via the Pavia ruling. That's why he sought eligibility at South Carolina. Like Diego Pavia is the whole catalyst for this whole thing.
Do you ever want to have a ruling named after you? The House settlement.
If it goes your way, I guess. Like, Ed O'Bannon won his case, and that rolled down the hill to where we are today. So, but he still won. So,
You have Alston.
yeah.
You have that one. Yeah. I want a Tyler one.
What would
The
my
Tyler injunction?
What would my injunction be?
That's a good question.
Now, are we talking about for NCAA purposes, or is this for something else?
Just whatever. We can make it the Tyler rule or whatever. The Tyler rule, like the Tuck rule.
Okay, yeah. Well,
The Tyler rule is you stick to the script.
well, while I talk,
stick to the rundown.
while I talk to Brian Edwards of Vegas Insider, why don't you craft together what the Tyler rule is going to be, and we'll address that at the end of the hour. How about that?
That's fair.
It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. We are going to talk to Brian Edwards of Vegas Insider coming up next as your Football Friday rolls along here on the game. All right, welcome back in. Halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head along with you here on your Football Friday here on The Game. And as we do every Friday at 12:30, time to talk some numbers with our guy Brian Edwards, a Vegas insider, joined me on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Brian, appreciate the time as always. How we doing today, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excited to talk about what's going on across a very busy weekend of football. Start off locally here with South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Tight game in terms of what the spread is, and this one feels like a lot of people think it could go back and forth. What do you think?
So I took Vandy plus 5.5 early in the week, but apparently a lot of people have been taking Vandy because this number has just steadily moved all week, and wake up this morning and it's all the way down to 3. Maybe a buy low opportunity for South Carolina, but I like Vandy at plus 5.5. It's hard for me to recommend it at plus 3, though. It seems like the value's been sucked out of it a little bit, but the reasons why I jumped on Vandy early in the week is because they've been dynamite as an underdog since they got Diego Pavia as their quarterback. 9-2 against the spread with 6 outright wins, and as a road underdog since Pavia got there, Vandy is 5-0 against the spread with 3 outright wins. They dominated Virginia Tech last week, 490 to 248 advantage in total yards, 23 to 16 in first downs. And obviously you guys in Columbia know, because y'all were watching the game or at the game, but a lot of people across the country that didn't see the game probably don't realize that the Gamecocks got 2 punt returns for a touchdown and a scoop and score, and actually were out yarded 270 to 253. So it doesn't seem like South Carolina's offense has really got going. Now, obviously they have tons of talent, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and a big-time receiver in Nick Harbor. I think they need to get Faison more touches, the stud running back from Utah State, and I think that probably will happen this week. South Carolina has won 16 in a row in this rivalry, but this is one of Vandy's best opportunities to snap that streak. I like the Commodores at plus 5.5, but that's not available anymore. So your listeners are on their own, really.
I don't know if you'd have the numbers for this, but has Vandy become a more trendy team to pick in the past year because of obviously the upset of Alabama and just how much more relevant they've been in this past year since as long as I can remember, at least?
100%. But I don't know that the odds makers have really gotten there with them quite yet. They definitely had respect for them as they were barely an underdog last week against Vatech, but they continue to cash tickets. Like I said, 9-2 against the spread as an underdog with Pavia.
Take a look at some other things happen around the SEC with Brian Edwards, a Vegas insider. Missouri coming off the big win last week against Kansas in the border war. They're taking on Louisiana in this one, and you like the over in this matchup.
Well, I like the over specific to Missouri's team total, over 37.5. But really, I don't think you can go wrong betting Missouri however you want to bet them in this game, whether it's first quarter, first half, or for the game. I love this offense so far this year, so I'm just going to put all my eggs in the team total over 37.5. So obviously they had a close game last week, and they didn't really get the spread cover until a late touchdown run. But if you went into the box score, Missouri had 595 yards of offense compared to only 226 for Kansas. They more than doubled them in time of possession and first downs with a 28-13 advantage. And Bo Prabula, who was the biggest question mark on this Missouri team coming into the year, he has had 2 spectacular performances last week, 30 of 39, 334 yards, 3 tutties, and no picks. And you look at Louisiana since 2021 when it's played Power 4 opponents, they gave up 38 at Texas, 49 at FSU, 35 at Minnesota, which wouldn't be quite the over 37.5, but, PJ Fleck's not an offensive juggernaut, 38 at Wake Forest, and 34 in a 34-3 loss to TCU in the bowl game last year, but that was misleading because it was 27-zip at halftime and 34-0 with 9:26 left in the third, and TCU just hit the brakes offensively. So Mizzou team total over 37.5 for me.
Let's take a look at Florida going into Baton Rouge and Death Valley, coming off of a tough loss last week to South Florida. I know you got in on this game earlier on in the week, but the line still set at about 7.5 right now, a day out, and you do like the Gators at that number.
I do, and I think you're okay at 7 or better. But again, you wake up this morning, and just like the Vandy line with South Carolina, Florida down to, or I should say LSU is down to a 7-point favorite at most books. FanDuel's still at 7.5, but most books are now 7. But I've said all week, as long as you're getting 7, I like the Gators. Now, it opened at 9.5 early Sunday morning, but I do like the Gators here. They've been really good as an underdog under Billy Napier, 6-3 against the spread. But in Napier's entire career, spanning his time with the Raging Cajuns, as a road underdog, he's actually 14-6-1 to the spread. And as an underdog of any sort, overall in his career, he's 26-14-1. LSU, something, they're not running the ball well. I mean, Caden Durham, I love him. Their running back, he had a great freshman season, but only 3.4 yards per carry so far. And the win over Clemson, I know it's only one data point, but it hasn't aged that well with Troy having a 16-3 lead at Clemson at halftime last week. The Gators are getting Caleb Banks back, defensive tackle who's a projected first-round pick in a lot of NFL mock drafts. He hasn't played yet this year, but he's fully cleared and ready to go this week. I think that'll give Florida a nice lift, and they're still waiting to get Dallas Wilson back, their true freshman wide receiver, who I think is going to be a superstar. He's out again this week, but he'll be back soon. I like the Gators catching the points.
Couple more minutes here with Brian Edwards, a Vegas Insider. Real quick, we'll hit this one. Arkansas going to Ole Miss, as Ole Miss just very nearly escaped in Lexington last week, and you like the complete over for this game between the two.
I do. I got it at 61.5, but I'm okay with it as long as it's 63 or less. 63, a multiple of 7, so obviously a key number on a total. Right now, it is 62.5 at most books, but I see Circa is at 63. So 3 of the last 4 head-to-head meetings between the Rebels and the Hogs have had combined scores of 94, 69, and 103, and 7 of the last 10 have gotten to at least 64. We've got 2 of the best play callers in college football, and Bobby Petrino and Lane Kiffin, and Austin Simmons has been taken fully off the injury report. He got a little banged up last week, and it doesn't hurt our cause that Arkansas's defensive end Quincy Rhodes, who is the SEC's co-leader in sacks, is questionable. I think we get a lot of points here. Give me the over.
And one here real quick. We don't have the complete status of Haynes King heading into tomorrow's game between Georgia Tech and Clemson. If he does play, though, we obviously know he goes out there and puts it all on the line. You like his over for a rushing total?
So the injury report came out last night, and he's not on it. I think they were just being, careful and, didn't need him last week and wanted him to rest up for Clemson. So I'm going his rushing yards prop over 48.5. He's had at least 58 rushing yards in 12 of the last 19 games, and he's had 82 or more in 9 of the last 19.
And one more NFL one before we let you go. Here, like the Bengals with the hook of being favored by 3 over the Jags.
Yeah, make sure to buy that 0.5 point to 3. Jags 1-8 on the road last year, straight up, but all the losses by at least 3. And look, the Bengals did not play well offensively last week. Not worried about their offense at all. What I was pleased with was the defense, which I didn't think was going to be very good. And maybe it won't be very good, but they played good last week. Let's go with the Bengals -3 at home.
Brian, good stuff. Appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Tyler. Have a good one.
He is Brian Edwards of Vegas Insider, and it's going to be a very fun week of a lot of great action across both college and professional football. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1 of the halftime show. Some interesting things happening on Thursday night. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier. Along with you, wrapping up hour number 1. A loaded weekend of football ahead. Did have some action going on last night with Thursday Night Football with the Commanders and the Packers. I hyped this game up as maybe being one of the best Thursday Night Football games of the year. I did not realize that the Packers defense was going to continue their reign of terror from Sunday and basically hold the Commanders to all of nothing in the first half. So that game wasn't all that entertaining. We did get an interesting game between NC State and Wake Forest, as we touched on a little bit earlier, where maybe the most exciting thing was the food truck maybe kind of catching on fire in the parking lot. Wake Forest's offense just went, dead in the second half, and NC State comes storming back to win that game 34-24 there. It still seems like, though, a lot of NC State fans would rather Dave Doran just move along and they start over. But starting 3-0, it's going to be a little bit hard right now.
You know, I covered him. Matter of fact, I talked to him the day after he got the job, and you couldn't have told me on that day back in 2013 that he would still be around. Because that's a good fan base.
That is.
Make of it what you will. That's a good fan base. They've not had real elite success, but they've not had bottomed out years either. They always seem to be just on the cusp, And the law of the wolf, and that's a thing up there. The law of the wolf is when you expect the least, you get the most. When you expect the most, you get the least.
Okay.
And that really does apply to that entire athletic department. Basketball, football, you name it. I mean, think about the baseball team. Remember the baseball team that had to come back?
Yeah.
From was it the College World Series?
Yeah, they were at the College World Series because was the COVID stuff where they were basically sent home. They weren't allowed to play. I mean, their basketball team, not this past year, but the year prior, that was dead in the water entering ACC play, and they went on one of the craziest runs you'll ever see, all the way to the Final Four.
That was DJ Burns.
DJ Burns became America's favorite player. So, yeah, just when you start counting NC State out, they find a way of turning that wick back up. But, they won last night. Our guy Robbie Ashford had his ups and downs. Threw a couple picks in that game last night as Wake Forest, has their first loss of the season. And again, we get ACC play rolling with a lot of teams this weekend. We'll get into Clemson and Georgia Tech coming up a little bit in the next hour. I do have to ask, did you figure out the Tyler Head rule or what we're doing with that? You mentioned that earlier on in the show.
No, I did not. I was napping. I fell asleep.
Okay.
But I'll come up with one.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to have a Tyler Head rule, it's to stick to the rundown, which some of us don't really do a good job of. It's to keep Terry Ford from wrecking things. By the way, have you seen him today?
I did. I saw him this morning.
Hey, dude. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, man. That's my Terry impersonation. I don't have a Tyler impersonation. I'll come up with something.
Okay. I'd be interested to see what that would be. I don't know. I don't know what my mannerisms are.
You got a beard. It's so cool. I'm just like captivated by it.
Can you not grow a beard?
Oh, I can grow one. It just can't look as cool as that one.
Okay.
I mean, you got like the jaw beard going.
It's not very cool. I need to shave it. It's been like a week.
You look like Tony Stark. You have an Iron Man beard.
No, it doesn't connect on the sides. You can't really see it up close, but it doesn't go all the way up. That's my problem. That's why I have to keep these kind of things shaved. Plus, it's gonna be probably gonna be pretty muggy tomorrow once again. So I need to have as much ventilation as possible.
What does Captain Dave say about the beard?
I don't know, Captain Dave. What do you say about it?
Yeah, it's nice. Looks good, man.
Well, there you have it. That's the only answer I need.
It's Friday.
It is. It is. By the way, I hope again for Dave's sake we're not out until 1:30 in the morning. Well, they gave me at like 12:30 last week, but most of us didn't get home until 2 or 3 in the morning. So hopefully we can avoid that this weekend. I looked at the weather, and it looks okay, but it also looked okay last Friday, and everything went sideways. So I'm going to hold my breath until kickoff tomorrow.
I'm not going to lie. The kickoff time had something to do with why I'm going to Atlanta instead of Willie B. Tomorrow.
Yep.
You got a noon kickoff.
You do.
Clemson, Georgia Tech, and I here's the thing. I find this Vanderbilt South Carolina game as equally captivating.
Sure.
I mean, I do. I really, truly do. But there could potentially be. I mean, think about this. Clemson could very well lose tomorrow to Georgia Tech.
They definitely could.
You already sang Hank Skeen's praises earlier in the show.
Yep.
You give that guy a chance, and they've got a chance. I think if that happens, it has more implications over what could happen tomorrow with Vanderbilt, South Carolina. I truly do. Because, I mean, this is a game that South Carolina has to win because Vanderbilt's a good team, but what's coming up is there's no room for error over the next few weeks for South Carolina. Put it that way.
No, without a doubt. And again, this isn't even the hardest part of their schedule they're getting to at this point. So we'll talk a little bit about turnovers coming up next. Also get into that Clemson Georgia Tech game that Scott will be at coming up tomorrow. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina. Hour number 2 on your way on your Friday on the game. All right, welcome back in hour number 2. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Ed, Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, hanging out with you here on the game. Of course, our focus is on South Carolina and Vanderbilt ahead of the first SEC matchup for both teams this year. And again, this is a much scrappier and confident, more confident Vanderbilt team than we typically see coming into Williams-Brice Stadium. So it's going to be a good game, going to be a tough game, and every facet of this game is going to be important. And I want to go back to what Coach Beamer had to say last night on Carolina Calls in reference to turnovers. Cut number 6 here, Dave, because I think that's going to be vitally important in this game.
Yeah, it's got to continue to, but that's been a huge part. I mean, we played a really close game against Virginia Tech, and we didn't turn the ball over. And then last week, even, I mean, it was we weren't doing much there for about the first, whatever it is, 25 minutes of the game. But the fact that we didn't turn the ball over certainly was a huge aspect in the last 2 games, and we've got to continue to protect the football, and we've got to continue to take the ball away from opponents, like you said.
You tell me right now that Carolina goes through all 4 quarters tomorrow night, not turning the ball over a single time, I feel pretty confident in their ability to win this game. You cannot waste possessions against Vanderbilt. That's what bit Alabama last year. They had the pick 6 early in the game. And again, when Vanderbilt controls the clock the way that they do, even one mistake like that can end up being the difference. And knock on wood, as Beamer alluded to, they did have the ball that came out of Sellers' hands against Virginia Tech in game number 1, but they were able to fall on it, keep possession. You've gone through 2 games. Everything's been good from a turnover standpoint. Would really like to see that continue. You're obviously, nobody goes through the entire season without turnovers. They're going to happen eventually. But for a game like this, where I think it's going to be that tight and it's really going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions at the end of the day, you can't afford to give Vanderbilt anything for free.
But I'm not that worried about turnovers. I mean, it's just, to me, having Mason Love trot out there is the same as a turnover. I mean, they've got to extend drives. They've got to come up with some kind of offense because that's as bad as a turnover.
It is. And one thing that they did really well against Vanderbilt last year was keeping those drives going. They were 9 of 12 on third downs. Their average third down distance was 5.5. Both those marks, the best of the entire year. And this year, it's been a struggle out of the gate in terms of how they've done on third downs because they're routinely in third and long scenarios, which of course we know goes back to winning on first and second down. So, you would obviously like to see more maybe creativity on first down because, again, we've seen a lot of those middle runs, which are getting stuffed or, only gain a yard or something like that, which sets you up for a second and long. And, if that's an incomplete pass, guess what? Now you're in third and long again. So I do wonder if the creativity looks a little bit different there. But, yes, it's vitally important to pick up 3-4 yards on first and second down so you're not routinely in third and longs where, again, you're in passing situations. The pass protection's not been great, and you kind of put 2 and 2 together there, and you see why South Carolina is struggling. So vitally important to keep drives going, not turn it over, and if you can avoid punting as much as possible, absolutely, because, again, when you hand the ball back to Vanderbilt, you may not see it for a while.
Here's a very basic question. Who is South Carolina offensively? What are they? Do they have an identity?
They do not. They do not have an identity for this year as of right now. They have done what they can. It's taken special teams in both instances to spark something to give them some kind of leeway because, again, you were leading 10-8 against Virginia Tech before Vakari Swain returned his punt return touchdown. Gave you a little bit of buffer there. You obviously got the Nick Harbor touchdown later in the game. You were down 3-0. And then the next time you touched the ball on Saturday, you were up 14-3, got a field goal before halftime, went up 17-3. So you've been dug out and helped tremendously by that third facet of the game. And again, defense got you a scoop and score last week that helped you pull away as well. But yeah, this team does not have an offensive identity right now. They want to run the ball. They're trying to run the ball, but it's not working.
Yeah, see, that was my next point. What is their goal? What is the goal? What is the one thing that they have to do that everything else will sprout out of? And I agree with you, it's the run game, but it's non-existent, dude.
Yeah.
And even the designed runs for Lenoris don't look like they're fully thought out and utilized at the appropriate time. I'm just having real problems with everything. And look, I know Mike Schuler's criticized. I know that he's been criticized everywhere he's ever coached.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. But and it's not a situation. We criticized Dow Loggins. We gave him grief.
Sure.
But this is just systemically so different from what we saw work last year. With a lot of the pieces are back, dude, on offense.
Yep.
A lot.
Yep.
You know, if not, I mean, you could argue that the running back room is actually an upgrade, even with Rocket Sanders gone.
I mean, really, the only differences are.
Simon.
Simon's gone, which, I mean, I think Brady Hunt, when he's been healthy, has been a solid, replacement in that role. And then you're obviously replacing a lot of your interior on the offensive line. And, Trobaugh's been on the team, but he didn't play much last year. So your entire interior is different, which I guess that's kind of the only key differences on the offense for the most part. But, yeah, it's not clicking the way that it was at times last year. And maybe this is the game that all gets rolling. I don't know. But 2/3 of the game are playing well. Defense and special teams doing their job. And if offense can even just be consistent enough, you'll feel good about it. But we haven't seen that enough yet through 2 games.
Sustain a drive.
Yes, please sustain a drive.
I don't even need to see an over the top to Nick Harbor to feel good. I just need to see a sustained drive where they can go out, execute, move the ball forward at a steady space, and maybe that's what they need. I mean, think about it. Maybe that's what needs to happen to unlock things. That they need a confidence booster. I hate to say that.
Yeah,
I hate to say that going into week 3, but they need a confidence booster showing they can go out, execute. The line can operate as a unit and have some success, and then move forward from there. Because a lot of times those big plays, I'll write that up as a defensive breakdown. And, well, Nick Harbor being superhuman.
So that's the game that we're focused on, but Scott's going to be heading out to the Flats tomorrow in Atlanta to watch Georgia Tech and Clemson. Clemson, a team that in and of itself needs a little bit of a confidence boost, but they're taking on an always tough Georgia Tech team coached by this guy.
We got a new target this week. We hit our mark last week. Mission hadn't changed for this football team. This target's a big one, the biggest one up to this point. Big challenge for us. We're in the middle of preparation. We're busy preparing and working on a plan, and we'll be ready to go on Saturday.
A lot of people, including myself, looked at Clemson as a team that legitimately was a national championship level team going into the year. You lose game 1 against LSU, which there's no shame in that, but the way they looked, particularly in the second half, wasn't great. Couldn't run the ball. Last week, just a completely sleepy start, at least, against Troy. And I get it. They had weather delays like Carolina did too, but not the prettiest game by any means. Now they're going on the road for the first time this year, taking on a team that talent-wise probably doesn't match up to them at Georgia Tech. But, my God, they're going to make sure you come away feeling it when you play them.
Yeah, and this is not ideal for Clemson given the situation they've been in so far. I mean, we talk about South Carolina not executing. Clemson has not executed offensively at all. I mean, I look at these numbers. Check this out. There are only 7 teams at the FBS level that have rushed for fewer yards than Clemson per game.
That's awful. That should never happen. That is not the Clemson identity at all.
And there are multiple. I mean, I've tried, and that was my column the other day. I mean, good luck trying to diagnose the problem. I mean, what is the problem? Is it? I think it might be personnel, and I know they've had a couple of injuries, but even the guys that are injured haven't really. They didn't step up to be the RB1. They didn't have a successor to Maffa.
Yeah.
Keith Adams Jr. They thought, but that hasn't panned out. They've got Adam Randall back there, running back, a wide receiver,
Which we know how that goes here.
And we know how that. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just wondering, did they drop the ball during recruiting? Did they not land some guys they thought they were going to land? Did they not go into the portal? And I know you have to be delicate with that word when it comes to Clemson, but they used the portal enough to fill some gaps in other areas. Did they not go into the portal to get a running back, or did they get turned away when they went into the portal to get a running back?
And I think we've seen this in a lot of instances, not specifically with Clemson, but there's a lot of times where coaches look at what they have and really believe in what they have in a certain room, like the running back room, and say, hey, we can get by with these guys. And like you said, they've had some injuries. Who's the freshman? Forget his name. They're really high on going into this year. one of those guys.
Gideon Davidson.
Yeah, Gideon Davidson. That's him. So yeah, guys they're high on, and then again, when toe meets leather, and you actually start playing games, well, maybe those guys aren't quite as good as you thought they were. And you're in season now. You can't go out there and make trades, and there's no waiver wire to pick up guys and stuff like that. You have what you have, and you got to roll with it. Now again, when you have a quarterback like Cade Klubnik, you assume that he's going to be able to help you get out of that funk a little bit, and he's not played tremendously through the first couple games.
No, and I know having some injuries at wide receiver have hurt a lot. I mean, it's hurt big time. Their passing game is only 79th in the country right now. Antonio Williams, when he comes back, stretches defenses, opens running lanes. That might be the solution for all this.
Sure. But
back to the personnel issue. If you think a true freshman is going to be that good, you've already failed. You've already got a problem because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know until that guy plays. And there is so much at stake for this Clemson team with this season. This is the roster that is supposed to validate everything Dabo has said about being a developmental program. This is the one,
yes,
that he's been pointing to.
This was the I told you so year.
Exactly. And if they fall flat, what does it do to him? What does it do to his legacy? If anything but a championship is going to be a disappointment, I'm throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm throwing that out there. And it's going to be, instead of him saying, I told you so, it's going to be all the thousands of other people pointing at him going, we told you so.
Yeah.
If he wants to continue operating as he's been operating, they have to win. And you know what? I'll walk that back a little bit. A championship, yeah, ideally, be semifinal, minimum.
Okay.
Minimum.
Okay.
That's the standard that they've set. While he's been this poster child for being developmental program, all the things that he's accomplished, the standard is to be in the Final Four of college football playoff.
Yep.
Anything less this year, failure.
Yeah, and again, this was one of the games that we circled even before the season started and said, hey, this is a team that you could trip up on going on the road for the first time, noon game, all that kind of stuff. And again, Georgia Tech ran away from Gardner-Webb a lot better than Clemson did last week against Troy. So, and with Clemson coming in, having the struggles they've had, this has all the makings of being a very long day, out there in Atlanta. So I don't know, I think it's going to be a good game. Again, Haynes King may not be 100%. He is going to play. And my goodness, we know he's going to leave it all out there on the field because that's what he does. And again, this is a team that does not give up. You're going to have to truly bury them under 1,000 pounds of bricks to get them to finally die, because that's just how Brent Key has them coached up. And I will say this: they're a fun team to watch.
Isn't it incredible how different the narrative is around Georgia Tech football now than just done? I mean, Jeff Collins, let's say it was a failure.
Yeah, it didn't go well.
That entire era.
Yeah,
his first game was against Clemson.
It was, and they were lifting weights on the sidelines, and they got their doors blown off.
It was just a clown show. Now they have a guy, alum from the area,
who was an assistant under Collins.
Jeff Collins. And when he got the interim job, I have a friend in administration there, and he's like, this is a great move that he needs to be the head coach. I'm like, really?
Yeah. I
said, this guy has like zero experience and blah, blah, blah. They're talking about who will be the coach. Will it be Dion? Will it be this or that?
Sure.
You couldn't have gotten a better situation.
No,
it's almost like Dabo getting named.
Yeah. Very, very similar. And look, as a Georgia alum, I'm as anti-GT as it can get, but respect Brent Key because he's got that program heading in the right direction. That's for sure. We'll talk about some of the other games going on around college football coming up later on the hour. But up next, it is Friday, and we talked to our guy Chris Deering at 1:15 about everything happening around the high school football landscape as the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina rolls on here on The Game. It's out right here for our friends over at Tilly's Warehouse, the first wine and spirit store in 5 Points in 20 years. They are locally family owned and operated, and they've got everything that you can want and so much more. I went in there recently and looked at their selection. They've got everything from tequilas and whiskeys and bourbons and specific things you might be looking for, like the Garnet and Black official vodka, which 25% of proceeds go to the Garnet Trust to benefit Gamecock Athletics. They also have things like High Noons and Sun Surfers. You can buy those by the case. They also have a Class B license, so if you're a local bar there in 5 Points and need to stock up, well, guess what? They've got you covered. You can mention that you heard this ad on 107.5 The Game and get 10% off any wine selection as well. You can also keep up with them on Facebook and Instagram and their website at TillysWarehouse.com and discover why Tilly's is your new must-visit spot over in 5 Points. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head along with you. Captain Dave producing on the other side of the glass. It is 1:15 on Friday. That means it's time to talk some high school football with our guy Chris Deering joining me on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Chris, appreciate your time as always. How we doing today, man?
Man, it's going good, Tyler. It's a beautiful day. Looks like it's to be a beautiful weekend. No rain delays this week, so
I hope not.
It'll be a good weekend for high school football tonight and for South Carolina and Clemson tomorrow afternoon.
We had some games locally in action last night. I know our guy Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central this morning was out at Nation Ford in Richland Northeast, which was apparently a very long night en route to Jake Bentley's team picking up the victory.
Yeah, it sounds like my game was finished. I went to Spring Valley and Catawba Ridge, where Catawba Ridge won 24-3. And I think when my game ended, they were still in the third quarter. You know, I felt lucky. I felt fortunate last night to get out of a game pretty quickly. I will say it's become the norm in high school football to have 3-hour games, and I don't understand it. There's no TV timeouts. There's none of that. So I'm a little bit perplexed for why these games are taking so long with 12-minute quarters. But that's become the norm. And, you know, if you can get out of the game before 10:30, you ought to feel yourself pretty fortunate.
Taking a look at some of the games coming up tonight. We'll start here with Camden taking on Ridgeview. Camden gave up quite a few points last week against Hartsville. Ridgeview coming off of 2 tight losses, 7 points each, including last time out to Dutch Fork.
Yeah, this Ridgeview team, you know, I will tell you, for me personally, I did not have them ranked after they lost to Northwestern. But, you know, playing Northwestern and Dutch Fork back-to-back, the 2 defending 5A champions, they lost each game by a touchdown. They're doing it without their quarterback. You know, he's out for the year. But the Chapman kid has come in and played very well for them. They got another injury to one of their top wide receivers. Christian Jackson is going to be out for a while now. But, man, this team's really good. And what coaches have told me that they've seen them in person and watched them on film is they're very fast defensively. They're very active defensively. You know, they're 1-2 on the season, but they've earned my respect, and I put them back in my top 10 this week. They are ranked number 10 in 5A overall. And they're playing a Camden team who is off to a really good start. They beat a good white and old team to start the season. They're 3-0. Navier Boykin, the running back, has been really good. Tyler Drakeford, another kid that's piled up a bunch of all-purpose yards. So I think this is going to be, you know, one of the highlight matchups here in the Midlands tonight will be that Camden Ridgeview game. And, you know, kudos to Ridgeview. I saw yesterday on social media that I think the first 100 or 200 students get some Bojangles free chicken sandwich gift cards. So,
That's awesome.
Whatever you got to do to get the people in the stand, go ahead and do it.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Again, talking to our guy Chris Deering about some high school football here in your Football Friday on the game. Next, we'll look at Carolina Forest taking on Irmo. Irmo finally got a little bit of a comfortable victory last week, 3-0, but they played a couple tight games to start the year and had a pretty convincing win last week against Butler.
Yeah, they played really. Irmo's played really well this year. They finally got an easy win last week. Our big winner last week against Butler out of North Carolina, Drayvon Dobson. He's played very well at quarterback, and that defense we knew was going to be really good coming into the season. Jaden Bryant, you know, he's a highly recruited. Everybody is after that kid. He's going to be really good. But I'll tell you, this Carolina Forest team. You talked about Camden scoring a lot of points last week. They did it in beating Hartsville. Carolina Forest did it the week before against Hartsville. And, you know, historically, Hartsville is really good. They might be down a little bit defensively this year. I'm not sure. I've only seen those 2 scores from Hartsville, but they have a running back in Jaron Fox that he's going to get his yards. Irmo's not going to shut him down. So I think the Irmo offense has probably got to match what Carolina Forest does tonight.
You talk about when it comes to the defensive side of things, 2 teams that aren't allowing a ton of points either way. Heathwood Hall and Hammond squaring off tonight as well.
Yeah, but both of those teams have been fantastic defensively. And, you know, I don't live far from Hammond. I know a lot of those coaches really well. I text with them pretty regular. And, you know, they got a linebacker in Jackson Ross and Bubba Alexander. Both of those guys are really good. They got a transfer in from AC Flora and Hugh Manning. He's been good. A kid I'm really high on the defensive line, John Stokes, has played well. They don't give up many points. And Heathwood Hall, Nate, right now, for the Skeezer ranks, might be the surprise team. They've played really well. They did lose last week. I think it wasn't Lawrence Manning. I can't remember who they lost to last week. But it was a close game. You know, I think they only gave up 14 points in the loss. So I think this one's going to be a really competitive, good game. Hammond's owned this series recently, but I think this one's going to be a little bit different story tonight because Hammond's not playing very well offensively right now. And so I think this one's going to be a tight game over at Hammond.
Looking elsewhere now, we move on to River Bluff taking on Gilbert. River Bluff 2 losses already on the season, including to Nation Ford last week. Gilbert, on the other hand, pulling up the overtime victory a couple weeks ago now. They've had last week off. Their last time out against Wilson in overtime. So a little bit more of a rested-up Gilbert team coming into this game.
You know, a rested-up Gilbert team, like I said, they beat Wilson 2 weeks ago, and all Wilson did, they turned around last week and beat a really good Dillon team. So that shows you how big a win that was for Gilbert because they opened the season with the loss to Lexington and didn't play well in that game, but then bounced back to beat Wilson. River Bluff has had a pretty tough schedule. They played decent, but you know, they got to find a way to get in the victory column. This is where I'm going tonight. I'll be at River Bluff for this game. Be interesting to see, you know, how these two teams come out. I think Gilbert is sort of patching it together at quarterback. And Greg Gunner, one of their defensive guys, he scored 3 touchdowns 2 weeks ago in that win over Wilson. And I think they've had to mix and match and put a couple of defensive guys on offense. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up with a pretty big, powerful River Bluff team in the trenches. So this is good. I feel like I'm gonna be at a good one tonight, and I hope it pans out that way.
One more locally here. Dutch Fork going to head on the road for the first time this year, taking on Gray Collegiate, who pulled away in their victory against Marlboro in the fourth quarter last week.
Yeah, you know, two teams I think obviously that have state championship aspirations right here on Dutch Fork in 5A, Gray Collegiate on 4A. You know, the numbers are a little bit different in this game as far as number of players. Dutch Fork is, you know, dressed out 60, 65 guys, and Gray probably dresses out 35. They're in 4A because of the multiplier deal that's put in place by the high school league. So disparity in numbers here in this game, but, you know, I think Gray's could give them a battle. Dutch Fork hasn't. I mean, let's just be honest. Dutch Fork has not played to the potential a lot of people thought they had coming into the season. So it'll be interesting if they can get things right, moving in the right direction, get the defense playing a little bit better. And you know, Jackson Knotts had a big game last week, and that went over at Ridgeview to quarterback. Tom Knotts' son. I think he's getting that experience. He's getting settled in as a starter. He was the backup last year. So that'll be another interesting game in this area to watch.
Last one here, only about 60 seconds before we have to hit the break. 2 big statewide matchups with South Point Northwestern and North Augusta at Strom Thurmond.
Yeah, that went up in the Rock Hill area, South Point Northwestern. No love lost between those two schools. Northwestern's played a really tough schedule. They beat South Florence last week. They beat Ridgeview the week before. They seem primed for another run, and South Point's had some quarterback issues. That they've moved the Currents kid who's committed to South Carolina, the defensive back. They've moved him to quarterback, and they've tried to piece things together. They had a very low scoring win last week over a team out of North Carolina, so that one's gonna be a fun one to watch. And then Strom Thurmond and North Augusta, again, 2 teams with state championship game aspirations and on different classifications. But that's gonna be a fun game to keep your eye on if you're watching statewide scores tonight.
Chris, we appreciate it as always. Enjoy the action this weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, y'all guys have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
He is Chris Deering, joins me each and every Friday to talk some high school football, and we'll discuss what's going on next week with him as well. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina. We'll dive into some other big matchups around the SEC. Up next as your Friday rolls along here on The Game. Tyler ahead for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. If you're looking for a mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder has got you covered. He's helped so many 107.5 Game listeners, and he can help you too. Jacob is local decision makers, which means quick and precise processing and underwriting. If you're looking to make a move, give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005 or email him at jcrowder@firstpalmetto.com. Interest rates have stabilized as well as the local housing market, and now is a good time to buy a house. Jacob and First Palmetto Bank have products to help home buyers. And if you're considering building a home, they have no-nonsense construction loans that fit your needs. Again, give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005. His MLS number is 198432, and First Palmetto Bank is a member of FDIC and an equal housing lender. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, hanging out with you. Obviously, Carolina and Vanderbilt squaring off tomorrow night, 7:45. The kickoff time. Pregame coverage starts tomorrow afternoon. Gamecocks game day. Myself and Terry Ford live from Jay's Corner at the corner of Rosewood and Bluff at 2:30. Leading right into network coverage at 4:30 for the 7:45 kickoff. But it's a full day of college football going on tomorrow as a lot of conference play gets rolling in the SEC. And one of the biggest matchups of the entire weekend, College Game Day, is going to be there. It's going to be between Georgia and Tennessee. And this will be cut number 11, Dave. Here is Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel about the details mattering this weekend for his team.
Previous Saturday has nothing to do with what's going to happen, transpire the following Saturday. Nothing good or bad follows with you. You got to learn from your lessons, and your preparation practice take you to a position being ready to go play at a high level. And in this one, the details are going to matter, and it comes in, your fundamentals, your technique, your eye discipline, everything post-snap can be really important.
I will say this, Scott. I did not think this matchup was going to be as big as it is going into this game because I thought Tennessee, with what they lost from a year ago, with the Nico situation happening in the offseason, I thought they were due for a down year going, 7-5, I don't know, the Music City Bowl or something like that. And, hey, maybe they'll get back into that playoff conversation next year. But, man, they've come out of the gate swinging. Joey Aguilar looks as comfortable as anyone I've seen in that Josh Heupel offense, and they're humming along, taking on a Georgia team that we don't know a lot about right now because they played nobody in their first two games.
Yeah, I have no clue about Georgia. I really don't. They could be the best team in the country.
They could.
For all we know. I mean, they legitimately could be. But back to your point regarding Tennessee, I mean, this is just validation for Josh Heupel and what he's built. I mean, it's a legit program and his legit system for him to be able to go. I mean, Hendon Hooker. We've discussed it the other day how Hendon Hooker languished at Virginia Tech. I mean, they were questions about, is this guy a Division I quarterback even? And coming out of high school, he was amazing. Josh Heupel was able to unlock that, and then to be able to move on from the Nico deal. It was a real pivotal moment for the way Josh Heupel stood up in that. Mm-hmm. It basically said, no one person is bigger than the program. And I think that rallied the team around him even more, but I think it also galvanized a fan base that's been through some stuff, dude. I mean, Tennessee football for the better part of the last 16 years has been, for the most part, a burning tire. It's been a toxic fire. I mean, it's not great.
I mean, if you go back to, I would say, since Philip Fulmer retired, but even the waning days of the Philip Fulmer era were controversial in their own ways, and you had Kiffin up and run after a year, the Derek Dooley thing that didn't work, Butch Jones, being a champion of life and having, a good start to one season, but that was about it. The less said about Jeremy Pruitt, the better.
Greg Schiano deal.
The Greg Schiano deal that led to the Pruitt deal. The less said about, the past 15-ish years about Tennessee football, the better. But they do seem to finally be on the right track. Josh Heupel's come in, created a good foundation, got an offensive system that works really well. And, again, they've knocked off Alabama 2 out of the last 3 years. Georgia's that dragon they haven't quite slayed yet in the Josh Heupel era. And, again, this seems like they ride the wave of momentum coming into this one.
Even when Fulmer was hired, it was controversial the way they pushed out Johnny Majors when Johnny Majors was having a heart procedure and Philip Fulmer was the interim, and then he ends up becoming the head coach. There's a really good book, and the name of the author escapes me, and I apologize. It's called Decade of Dysfunction. Mm-hmm. About Tennessee football, and it sums up everything that you just outlined. But let me ask you this. As a Georgia guy.
Sure.
As a Georgia guy, are they a rival?
They are. Yeah, they are. I would say the tier rankings for rivals go Florida, Auburn, Tech, then maybe Tennessee. I think you can kind of debate between 3 and 4 there a little bit. Florida's definitely number 1. And it's just because Tech has not been, and they look good now, but for the better part of the past 20 years, they've only been relevant a handful of times and beaten Georgia in the process there. But yeah, Tennessee's a rival. They're not A1, but they're up there in the mix.
So you don't have the Gamecocks on that list either.
From a Georgia perspective, it's not seen as high. I would say that it's a rivalry, but it's not. I would say it's like 5 or 6 probably for Georgia. If I had to take a guess there, it's more one of those things that when Carolina and Georgia played every single year, that was always a game you never looked forward to, right? Because especially in the Spurrier era, Spurrier could have the worst team of the two, and he would still find a way to win that matchup. And it was always a weird score, too. It'd be like 15-12 or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of how those matchups went. I would say they're a rival, and especially now they haven't played in the past couple of years, it's fallen off a little bit. But there's a lot of Georgia people that would like to see the South Carolina game reignited annually if we get the annual opponents thing coming up here starting next year.
So your three, the 3 rivalries that you would protect would be Florida,
Auburn,
or not Tech. Give me your 3.
Well, okay, within the SEC,
rivals.
From the Georgia perspective, it would be Florida, it'd be Auburn. I would personally pick Carolina just because I think it makes the most sense because of your proximity. I mean, I would hate to lose the Tennessee game every single year, but I could live with it. But I don't remember if that was the projected ones or not. I know Florida and Auburn. That's definitely gonna stick for them. And again, Carolina's in the weird spot where they don't have like what the conference deems as a rival within the conference, that they unfortunately may have to kind of deal with whatever gets left over from teams after they all have their locked in ones, confirmed.
Well, and I think part of that is because in the grand scheme of things, USC is still new to the Southeastern Conference. I know it's been 30 some odd years, but Georgia and Auburn go back 180 billion years, and Georgia, Florida goes back to the first days of the SEC. I'm always fascinated though when they talk about we have to maintain this rivalry, we have to maintain that rivalry. I think everybody in the league is a rival. It's not like the Big Ten, which has a bunch of how many different trophies.
Every game's for a trophy of a bucket that they found, in the back of a broom closet or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fool's errand trying to preserve all those rivalries there. And I like that the SEC tries to keep some of those. I mean, you got to keep the Egg Bowl, things like that. Georgia, Florida, you got to keep that.
I will say this, if Vandy continues to be this Vandy team that we see right now, I think that could be a fun game to see every single year between Carolina and Vanderbilt.
Okay, let's go down this road. Give me 3. 3 for South Carolina.
3 for okay.
Tyler Head.
Yeah, Georgia for proximity.
All on you. You're the grand poobah.
Georgia for proximity. Kentucky, I think there's some chippiness there, and I would personally go Arkansas just because you came into the league with them, and it makes sense that you guys played each other every single year. Like I'd go back to that.
Well, you see, there's the trophy now between the Missouri and
Don't disrespect the Mayor's Cup. I'm sorry.
The Mayor's, and nobody talked about that. Last year, South Carolina won all the trophy games.
They did.
And then they got the trophy for the game in Atlanta. There was a trophy. Remember the football helmet?
The Aflac kickoff. Yeah, there's a trophy for that.
So Shane is what, 4 for 4 now, I guess, in those. No, I guess you count the bowl game.
Yeah, and 4 for 5 in the past year at least. So yeah, he's doing well. One coach that's not doing well right now is Billy Napier. We'll discuss the elements of this game that they have against LSU coming up tomorrow as the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina rolls along here on your Football Friday on the Game.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt at all because I know that room. I know what's inside of each one of those guys. So, but we're all human, right? I do think it's part of the leadership challenge is to get the group to stay focused on the right things, right? It's about making the next right decision, and you got to be able to move on, right? It's part of, hey, we had a setback, we got to move forward. If you don't, all of a sudden it lingers, and it's Tuesday or Wednesday, and you wasted time, right? And the clock started yesterday. So we got to focus on the next plan.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton. Wrapping up hour number 2. A reminder, tonight, by the way, you have the high school football scoreboard show with Elijah Campbell just saw. But before that, postgame show with Jay and Terry going to be out at Columbia Craft at 520 Green Street over here in Columbia. That was Billy Napier, of course, the head coach of the Florida Gators, coming off of a really embarrassing loss last week to South Florida, where they just completely malfunctioned at the end of that game and allowed the Bulls to come into their barn and beat them. Let me ask you this question, Scott. Do you think Florida fans want Billy Napier in Florida to win this game tomorrow, or are they ready for this to be over with and just get throttle stomped by LSU and put them out of their misery?
Wow. That's a really good question. I mean, part of me thinks, yeah, they just want it to be over with. I think it's over with anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Florida LSU series is so weird, and it's happened so infrequently over the last few years that I think they don't want to miss this opportunity. I mean, that program hasn't been right since that dude threw that shoe.
It really hasn't, which, funny enough, also happened in this exact game back in 2020.
Yeah, and things have been broken since then. And look, Billy Napier's a good dude, man. He's a good guy, but this job is just too much for him. And you got the Jaden Rashada stuff.
You do.
Spinning.
And
it was coaching malfeasance the other day. What happened inside those final 2.5 minutes?
That didn't look like a team that was being coached by a guy in his 4th year, right? That looked like a team that it was a first-year head coach that was undisciplined. Okay, fine, first-year head coach, got to clean those kind of things up. That shouldn't happen in year number 4. And it seems like a never-ending cycle because for Billy Napier, it's like, okay, he was on the hot seat last year. We thought he was a dead man walking, wins this game, beats Ole Miss, does enough to save his job. And then we're right back in this exact same scenario again. So it's like, all right, he can continue to stave off the pitchforks and torches, but there's nothing about the Billy Napier era that tells me that they're suddenly going to become a 9-10 win team and start making the college ball playoff because, again, they've been 500 since he's been there basically, a little better than that last year, and I just don't see them being any better than that. And now with this loss to South Florida, that may have been enough to, once they lose a couple more games, once they get into conference play, to just go ahead and say, all right, let's go ahead and shut this down and start over again.
How did they even get in this position? I mean, let's ask ourselves that. This is supposed to be a destination job.
Yeah, supposed to be.
One of the best. And you hire a coach from the G5, now G6, who had tremendous success at Louisiana. But you're Florida, man. You're supposed to be able to take bigger swings. Look, you can say what you want. Dan Mullen was a pretty good coach. Dan Mullen had Mississippi State as the very first number 1 team in the college football playoff era. He was that guy. You poached a coach. Yes, I rhymed. From the SEC, from your own conference.
Yeah, you did.
But when you go and replace him, you dive down into the G5. I don't understand the thinking behind that.
If Dan Mullen had not been so upfront about his lack of care for recruiting, he could have been there longer. But again, when he blatantly says, I don't really care about this during the season while Kirby Smart's recruiting his butt off, a state above you, your biggest rival there, that was obviously a bad look. But again, when you look at the success that Dan Mullen had, even in just a couple years at Florida, Billy Napier ain't touching that. Billy Napier is not going to get this team to an SEC championship game. He's not going to get this team on the cusp of the college football playoff. Again, I think most Florida fans would take Dan Mullen back in a heartbeat, no matter what. And again, you would talk about Tennessee and their dysfunction since Philip Fulmer retired, even a little bit before that. I mean, really, since Urban Meyer left, yeah, they've had some success. They've made some title SEC championship games, but it's been just a whirlwind for Florida over the years.
Well, you got to remember, this is a school, this is a program that its new head coach had a website devoted to getting him fired the first day he started before he ever coached a game. FireRonZook.com.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wrap your mind around that.
Yeah.
That says so much about the fan base. But again, it's a destination job. You have every resource in the world.
It is. And
it baffles me. It baffles me.
Yeah. And that game tomorrow in Baton Rouge could end up getting very, very ugly, though Florida did pull off the win a year ago down there in the Swamp, so nothing's impossible. But I think this whole deal, this whole experiment with Billy Napier is over and done with, and I think I think LSU does end up winning this one pretty handily. We'll get back into South Carolina and Vanderbilt coming up next as we start hour number 3. We'll also let you hear coming up later on in the hour our conversation with Jason Brown, former Gamecock quarterback, from earlier on this morning as he talked to Lenore Sellers and also helped us preview this matchup against Vanderbilt. That's all coming up in hour number 3. It's Halftime Show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina on your Football Friday here on The Game.
Yeah, I'll have to roll it for the next.
All right, welcome back in hour number 3. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina. Tyrant Scott Hamilton hanging out with you on your Football Friday here on The Game. I'll remind you once again, the Louis Release Special Teams Contest is back. We've already given away $200 earlier on this morning for Vicari Swain scoring special teams touchdowns in the first 2 games. And if you go to 1075thegame.com, you can register, because if he does it again tomorrow, guess what? You can win $100 once again. So the 1075 The Game for the Louis Release Special Teams Touchdown Contest. I heard a stat last night listening to Carolina Calls that I feel like I knew, but when you hear something pointed out, you're almost kind of surprised by it. Carolina is seeking its first 3-0 start since 2012. They have not started off season 3-0 since the prime years of Spurrier. Now, there were a lot of years where, you had played like a Georgia or whatever, when they were really, really good, still are really, really good, early on in the season. That accounted for several of those losses, but you have a prime opportunity now against a tough team, no doubt, but one that if Carolina plays its best version of football tomorrow, they should be able to beat.
Close to the best version of Carolina football. I mean, we're going under. It might as well be July for us right now. We still have no clue what this team is. I mean, is this the final version? What we're seeing?
I really hope not, because it's going to be a very long season, especially once you get into October. If this is all you can muster on offense, again, 2/3 of this team are playing really well, and I think it's so interesting because as so much of what we talked about in the offseason revolved around, man, the questions on defense, replacing all these guys that are in the NFL now, and very valid thoughts and very valid concerns, and the defense has come in and played great. Now, again, this is going to be the best team they've played so far, so they're going to be tested more than they have in the first 2 games, I feel like, but they've passed with flying colors in these first 2 weeks. Special teams, which we always just assume, like, yeah, special teams is good. They've far exceeded what we thought they were going to be. Now, again, I'm still a little concerned about William Joyce, and I think this is a game where every kick he makes tomorrow is going to matter a ton. But offensively, it's just like, yeah, again, the scripted drive against Virginia Tech to start the game, phenomenal. Gave you everything that you wanted and said, oh, baby, we're off and rolling. And really, since then, save for a drive or 2 here, I mean, not a whole lot to hang your hat on.
I hate to be that guy, but let's think about this for a moment. You have the 3 facets of the game.
Yes.
Offense, defense, special teams.
Yes.
Defense playing really good. And despite all the changes, defense playing really good, but what's the one constant with that defense? What's the one constant? What's the same thing that is in place that was in place last year?
The coordinator.
The coordinator.
Yeah.
Special teams.
Coordinator. Yeah.
Offense.
Different.
Big change.
Yep.
Different. And I'm still wondering, I mean, what does a Mike Shula offense look like? What's it about? What's it predicated upon? Is he still, I mean, and it's not like Tyler, and this is the thing that really concerns me. It's not like he came in cold.
Sure.
He was the pseudo quarterback coach. He has a relationship with the North Sellers. He knows his positives. He knows his strengths. Where is the disconnect now that he's having him perform in a way that's obviously not natural or conducive to his special skills? I don't understand it.
And that's what we're trying to figure out. I can tell you what the Shula offense wants to be. It's one that's able to run the ball down your throat, as most offenses would like to do, because, again, when you run, you control the clock, you control the game, and it obviously sets up the pass for you as well. And they're trying their best to run, and you have an offensive line that hasn't performed its best. We talked about communication issues earlier on this week that, they were very honest about. Beamer talked about it. Case Henry talked about it. Boaz Stanley talked about it. Now, as Beamer alluded to last night in Carolina Calls, it's not an instance where every single play they don't know what's happening. There were a couple of instances last week, and I think some in the Virginia Tech game too, where some wires got crossed and there was some miscommunication there, but still, that's a concern nonetheless. So you have some issues up front that you're still trying to work through. You feel like you got the backs that are capable of it, right, with Rasul Faison and Oscar Attaway, but again, when you don't have lanes to run through when you're getting the handoff and boom, there's a guy a yard in front of you. You can only be so successful, right? So it's an offense that's trying to establish an identity on the ground, but has just not been able to get the consistency it needs to make that happen. And again, if it does happen, then you feel like everything else will be able to fall in line. There's still the question of, okay, how much do you use Sellers with his natural running ability and more design type things? We've seen him escape from the pocket a few times and make some plays with his feet that weren't necessarily designed that way. But yeah, that's what I've gathered up from watching this team for 2 games so far.
I've seen nothing to encourage me that they being, we'll just say it, Shula specifically, is doing anything schematically to help alleviate the situation. And you and I talked about it the other day. I'm talking about spreading the field horizontally, screen passes, slip screens, anything, wider splits, for goodness sakes. Just try wider splits, anything to create a natural lane or to get the defense moving one way or the other horizontally to give yourself a chance to run the football. I have not seen that as much as I would like, and that's football 101. Spread it out. Create a natural hole.
Yeah. Well, and
but they're not doing it.
This game too, because you can make some form of an argument that, okay, well, maybe they didn't want to put everything out there until you got into conference play. So maybe you're holding some things back. Again, last week you're playing South Carolina State. You didn't need anything crazy. And again, thankfully you got bailed out by your special teams in the first half to create a buffer there where, once you got up 17-3, you didn't really feel like SC State was going to come back after that. But if you were trying to hold some things close, now's the weekend to unleash it. There is no reason to continue to harbor things. No pun intended there. Unleash the whole playbook and be as successful as you can tomorrow. And that's what you're going to need each and every week from now until the end of the regular season. Because again, now your toughest test begin. Now, in years past, playing Vanderbilt often meant that, hey, we can just beat these guys with one hand tied behind our back. Not this time around. You've got a scrappy team, and as we've talked about a lot, you have a very unique offense on the other side that Vanderbilt likes to run with that spread option from Tim Beck that they do very effectively, right? And you talk about Carolina needing to make things more horizontal. Vanderbilt's the perfect example of playing horizontal football because they're going to confuse you before the snap. They're going to move guys around, orbit motions, those kind of things where you have to play really sound assignment football. Because again, I think from a skill standpoint, they don't have their offense from top to bottom is probably not as skilled as South Carolina's is, but they work well within that offense, and that's something that kind of equalizes things. That is going to make this game a challenge tomorrow night.
See, you just outlined the whole problem. You were able to describe who they are,
yes,
what they are, and what they want to accomplish. You just perfectly outlined it. South Carolina can't do it because we still don't know. And, that's a question. I mean, we just need to ask Shula, what are they? What do they want to be? How would he describe, in simplest terms, how would he describe what he wants to achieve offensively? What is his scheme?
Yeah. Yep, fair point. Again, I really hope we can come in here on Monday and talk about, all right, identity established. Because you saw last year, and Sellers last year, one of the, I don't know, it wasn't one of the first ones, but one of the more significant magic plays, as we like to call them, was when he, dumped off the defender and threw a 50-yard pass to Jared Brown up the sidelines that I think Carolina went on to score a touchdown later on in that drive. That was a classic example of Sellers being his best and making things happen. And again, we've seen some plays like that this year, but none of those wow moments. And again, the designed run element of the offense hasn't been there in the way we would have hoped. And again, I get the idea of trying to make him a better all-around passer, sit in the pocket, go through his progressions, those kind of things. Think more pocket type of quarterback. But when you have that ability to be athletic and to make those, make defenses pay with your feet, then you really don't want to hold that back any more than you have to. And again, it's like, all right, first 2 games haven't gone great. It's time to break open that case and let something happen.
I came out of the Kentucky game last year, and I remember thinking, that's when they figured it out.
Sure.
That's when they figured it out against Kentucky, because if you remember, Old Dominion game wasn't great. What was the game after that?
It was
Kentucky
Kentucky. Yeah.
Third game.
Yeah.
Okay. They had their identity. The offensive line began to play better. Because say what you want about Kentucky, they're usually going to be pretty physical.
Typically, yeah.
Across both lines. South Carolina came out of that game looking like a physical football team that knew what it wanted to achieve offensively. Shorter passes, moving the quarterback around in the pocket, things like that. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I have no clue right now.
Well, I got to let you go. I know you got to get on your way to Atlanta. How do you see this one playing out tomorrow, though?
Oh, man. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't like to get into predictions but because I'm usually wrong. But it's going to be close, and there's a lot at stake.
Well, we'll see what happens. Should be fun. Enjoy Atlanta, and I think you're going to be in for a dogfight of a game yourself tomorrow afternoon.
You the man, Tyler.
All right, coming up next, we'll let you hear our conversation with Jason Brown, former Gamecock quarterback, who joined us on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs earlier, as talked to Lenora Sellers and the Vanderbilt game as well, as the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina continues on your Friday on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Pro Swing Columbia, 2 locations in Forest Acres and Chapin. And I told you about it the other day, but I'll remind you again, their fall league is starting up here in just a couple weeks. First week kicks off September 29th, 12 weeks of league play at either locations, again, in Forest Drive or Chapin. You can play anytime or dedicated league nights with advanced booking required per week. And they have a flighted play for a level playing field. Don't wait. Registration does close soon. They want to let you be a part of this year's fall league. If you have any questions, give them a call at 803-518-1617 as Pro Swing is your place to go for all indoor golf. And, of course, you can always hang out and play on those golf zone simulators as well. Pro Swing Columbia, go check them out in Forest Acres and Chapin. 11 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Football Friday. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you here. Got a little bit of a loaded studio today as we welcome in guest, former Gamecock quarterback Jason Brown, going to hang out with us for a bit on this Football Friday. Jason, appreciate you hanging out. How are we doing today?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. Excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's always good to be back in Columbia, man, let me tell you.
So Jason, you going to the game tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely.
I assume that's one primary reason that you're here.
Yeah.
And then have you decided on, we were talking in the lobby out there about trying to find a high school football game. You found one yet? You still kind of mulling a few options? You mentioned Camden Ridgeview. You got Irmo tonight. You got Dutch Fork.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dutch Fork plays at home.
I'm not sure which one I'm going to go to yet. Which one do you guys prefer? Which one do you guys think? I've heard all of them are going to be really good, though. That's the thing.
I'm not sure off the top of my head if Dutch Fork's at home, but I definitely they've got some D1 guys.
Yeah, they always got
Tom. They're always good.
100%.
Dutch Fork is playing at Gray tonight.
At Gray. Okay, so that's still
a local game.
Doable.
Okay,
yeah, you
local.
can do that. Yeah.
I mean, shoot, maybe me and my dad will go check out a couple of them.
Yeah, you can shoot around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So, Vandy game tomorrow. We were talking off air, too. Man, this game has some juice. Like, I don't usually look at South Carolina Vanderbilt. This is not a game you circled before the year and was like,
Some people did.
One person in particular did.
Game 3.
Yes, game 3. It is here tomorrow night. I think it's going to be a big-time SEC atmosphere, though, man. Like that, we would not have said that before, but how are you kind of just what are your thoughts maybe just going into this thing, man?
I think the game's going to be one up front. I just think that's where these two teams could improve in. I just think that those two things that's where the game's going to be won. And then obviously the quarterback play. SEC game, especially with it being an SEC game, every possession is going to matter. So you got to be able to sustain drives, keep that other quarterback off the field so they don't have an opportunity to make plays, and whoever does that better is going to end up winning the game.
I'm glad you brought up quarterback play. Obviously, want to talk a little bit about that with you, man. Sellers. Let's start with last year, though. The kind of the progression he made, getting comfortable. What things did you see other than just like, all right, the dude's like an alien or something in terms of breaking tackles and breaking off these long runs? What did you see kind of from that QB perspective, somebody who played the game, in terms of how he got better as the year went on last year?
I mean, from his physical attributes, there's no question how much of a dog he is. I mean, and you can see that with how, just how he looks, how he breaks tackles, how hard he runs the football. There's no doubt about any of that. It was just him being a young quarterback in the hardest conference in college football. That's tough to come into and have success early. And, he didn't have success early on, but as the season went on, you saw him grow not only as a quarterback, but as a leader of the team. You could definitely see from outside that people rally behind him, and that's what you need in a quarterback at the SEC level.
What do you make of the debate that's been going on through these first couple games? Obviously, Mike Shula taken over as the offensive coordinator and hasn't had it in the game plan to let him use his legs quite as much as maybe he did a year ago. And again, last week you played against SC State where you didn't necessarily need that to beat them, but now you're getting into SEC play, and we're hoping that maybe the playbook opens up a little bit. What is kind of that balance of wanting to maybe hold something back, but also trying to bring a guy on and develop him in the way that Mike Shula has been trying to do this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long season, and there's high expectations with this team as well. So I do think that the playbook has been dulled down a little bit, especially last week. Obviously no disrespect to South Carolina State. They're a great football team with a great tradition as well. But, we don't really need to run him as much as we would for an SEC game. So, just finding other ways that he can impact the game outside of his legs so he's not taking unnecessary hits, increasing that risk for injury when it's not really needed. But I do think that playbook is going to open up a little bit this week and going forward in SEC play as well.
You always hear people talk about, especially, they're analyzing a game, they talk about, like, maybe giving a quarterback kind of a layup to start a game, like getting some easy throws in, just letting you get settled in. I mean, I've even heard of some guys that say, hey, I want to take my first hit to kind of just get into the flow of the game. For you personally, Is there something to that? Just kind of seeing that first ball get completed, kind of getting your mechanics, settled in, and just what was your mindset like the first drive of a game?
Honestly, it depended on the team that I was playing. Sometimes I would like to see a completion go first. And sometimes if we were playing a really tough opponent that had some big hitters, I wanted a quarterback run, and I wanted to get rocked first play just to get the jitters out. It really honestly just depends on the opponent.
I got you. What was the difference, other than maybe some of the obvious things, going in like a big SEC matchup? Like, does it literally hurt that much more when these 330-pounders fall on you, or is it kind of at some threshold? Is it like kind of all the same? Like they're all big, fast, physical. Like what was the difference SEC play versus out of conference here at South Carolina?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. And, I can speak from experience because, as most people know, I've played at 4 different places in college. So there's definitely a difference, and you can definitely feel that difference when you get hit by an SEC player compared to another another conference player for sure.
How much of Diego, let's talk about the other quarterback, the opposing quarterback, Diego Pavia. I know you pay a lot of attention to college football. How much of him have you watched, and what are your impressions there on him?
I think he's a good quarterback. Obviously they're doing some good things. They're 2-0 coming into the game. So, they're doing some great things on offense. And I think how he carries himself, I think, is a way to motivate his team. And I think he does a good job at that. Getting people riled up and getting people to rally behind him. I think he does a really good job of that.
I'm glad you brought that up because, look, we all know Vanderbilt's been the doormat in the SEC for a long time. And, he comes in a year ago, and it was after the Alabama game that people really started to take notice of him and the confidence he carries. And you see that resonating with the rest of the team, that they walk into every game now believing that they can win. And they'll always tell you in years past, we always thought we could win. But, mindset's a different thing when you have a guy like that that's kind of leading the charge. So when you have a leader, it doesn't always have to be the quarterback, but somebody like that that's creating that belief in the rest of the team. How does that carry over into games like this where, maybe the matchup favors one team from an athletic and skill standpoint, but you have that mindset of, hey, there's nobody that can beat us?
Yeah, I think just his mindset, I think it's a trickle-down effect, a ripple effect in a way. He'll start off by saying whatever he needs to say, and then there are other leaders chime in as well, and then it just creates a big group effort to get that same mindset going. And that's what, you can see from an outside source, and, just see how they rally behind each other and everything like that. And just they do gel well on the field together as well. So I just think that, all of that confidence combined together, I think that just elevates their play a little bit as well.
You were inside the room, obviously, here at South Carolina when, these Beamer teams, for whatever reason, have found a way to play some of their best ball as the year has gone on. You were certainly a part of that, getting, inserted into the lineup. But what is it about Beamer that even maybe when, and maybe we include the whole staff in that too, but when the outside noise gets at its worst, he's been able to just keep everything together pretty much every year. Even the disappointing year last year, it was kind of a strong finish. What have you seen being inside that building in terms of those things?
Just like, I've mentioned this before. I think a reason that they do so well, and they've continued to do so well as the season has gone on every single year, is just how consistent in what they do in the building every single week. When I was there in 2021, from training camp to the final week that I was there, we were consistent in everything that we did. And I think that I think just staying consistent in that, especially with it being this conference, you have to be consistent. And I think they do a tremendous job at that, from the head coach all the way down to recruiting, all the way down to the equipment staff. Everybody is consistent in everything that they do. Well,
and I think we've seen this week, to Tyler's point, Vandy's taken the approach of, not hiding they're talking about it, they're not hiding it. Carolina's been more reserved, kind of just, we're going to do our thing, not downplaying the importance of the game, but just, okay, y'all can talk and we're going to do our thing. Maybe that's that consistency that you talk about. But with Beamer, when you were there, in the team meetings, in the locker room, at half times, how much of his, motivational tactics were kind of playing that? You see a lot of these coaches, you see Vandy play it, you see Kirby Smart at Georgia play it, nobody believes in us. Is it that, or is it more just let's be who we are and not worry about any of that?
Yeah, it's really just play our game.
Yeah,
is what he always preached when I was there. You know, there's no need to worry about the outside noise. You know, people are going to say whatever they want to say, but that's not going to. You can't let that have an effect on the locker room. You can't let social media or anything like that try to divide a locker room, because that's just going to create chaos, and that's going to mess up that consistency piece, and then that's going to mess up everything else that they have going good for the program. So, you know, there's just certain, let's see how I could put it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that answer. I couldn't think of anything else.
And Beamer was asked about this last night on Carolina Calls, because, again, Vanderbilt's been making a lot of noise, not only this week, but the entire offseason. And he said, look, our guys are on their phones. They can't ignore it. This stuff's going to be seen. It's going to be sent to them and all that kind of stuff, you know. And there's a different conversation you have with a coach compared to what you have with each other. So when these kind of things are getting thrown out there, shots being taken at a team, like, what is that communication like in the locker room between teammates of, hey, let's go out there and, you know, shut these guys up type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, with social media now, you're going to see some of those things, and some of those things are going to be bulletin board material, so to say. But like I said, you try to minimize that as much as you can in the locker room, just because you don't want to let that affect you know, the good that you have going for the program as well. So that was always preached. Just try not to let it get to you, and you know, just try to stay consistent in what you do, and you know, just worry about the people that are in the locker room, in the building, because ultimately those are the ones that are going to be going to war with you on Saturdays. So.
Yeah, I got to think, man, like, you can use that as motivation throughout the week. Use that to maybe help yourself be a little more focused or something on particular things. But at some point, once you kick the thing off, isn't it just more about, you know, who's going to go make plays, who's going to make smart decisions?
Yeah, and another thing, too, like, everybody prepares a different way. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that could be motivation to you, and some person just really couldn't care less, you know, and they're still going to go out there and play their hardest for you. They just prepare a little bit different. But, I mean, once the football gets kicked off, I mean, it's the same game that most people have been playing since they were 5 years old. So go make a play and go win that game.
Again, former Gamecock quarterback Jason Brown hanging out with us here on your Football Friday on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. We'll have more on the other side here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you on your Football Friday here on the game. Hanging out for a few more minutes with former Gamecock quarterback Jason Brown as we preview this matchup with the Gamecocks and the Commodores coming up tomorrow night over at Williams-Brice Stadium. Again, the offense hasn't been exactly what we wanted from Carolina through the first couple games, but defense and special teams have certainly been holding up their end of the deal quite well. As a quarterback, when you know those other two facets of the game are doing their job, as you're maybe trying to figure some things out on offense, what's that comfort level of knowing that they're there to pick you up?
It's great when the other two phases of the game are playing at a high level when you happen to be struggling a little bit. It definitely gives you a confidence boost that, these guys are out here doing their job. Now it's just time for us to do ours. And, that really lets you focus down on, what could be causing the problems. It's causing drives to stall, anything like that. Gives you a little bit more time to figure out what that problem is and get it handled, especially when when the special teams is putting up touchdowns for you. It just gives you more time to try to prepare for the next offensive drive as well. So, there's just those little things that go into everything, just make the bigger picture whole.
How thin is the line between good football and bad football? Like, I feel like
very thin.
Fans will look at you had three and outs in a row. Like, that's terrible. But then you look, the first play of the game, there's a post down the middle of the field wide open if he sees him, it's like 94 yards and a touchdown. There's a screenplay early in the game. It gets tipped to the line. It's set up perfectly. If he catches it, he might still be running. Like when you go back and watch film, like I bet people would probably be surprised, like how narrow, like, oh, this is a narrow miss and we have a 40-yard gain, but instead it's incomplete and then we're 3 and out.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I've always said just from playing and then just from watching as a fan, since I've been done playing football, is just one thing that I've noticed that, watching when you're not in the building is different because, you see things from the side angle. In the games compared to being behind the center. You got to put it like this. Lenoris is standing behind 5 people that weigh approximately 320 pounds, and they're all 6'6" and above. There's certain plays where he looks based on the defense. So he might miss something on the other side that pops wide open, but you're going to see that from the stands. But you can't fault him for that because his read is telling him to go over here. So you can't fault him for missing that. And then there's so many other little things that go into it, like if there's a missed throw or anything like that, okay, was it his footwork? Did the receiver take one extra rotation in his route? And did that receiver take one more step deeper on his route, one more rotation through that route to make it 1 yard deeper that messes up that entire timing of the route? There's so many little things that go into it, and that's just one of those examples.
And aren't receivers at times adjusting?
Exactly.
Like the quarterback's reading coverage and the receivers, and they have to be on the same exact page.
Exactly, and then it's dependent on what route he runs as well, what release the receiver's going to give. There's so many different things that go into it that have to be perfect. It's such a thin line to be from great to good.
I want to linger on Lenoris for just a minute. I meant to ask this earlier when we were kind of talking specifically about him, but, watching him, and I've been asking people this. I'm kind of on this question right now that I'm just trying to ask, like every coach, every player I've talked to. Have you seen anybody studying quarterbacks like you have that is like as strong as he is in the lower body? Because I can't think of many.
Only other person that I could think of off the top of my head that's that strong with his lower body would probably be Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts squats like 650 pounds.
Yeah,
that dude's
a good one.
Dude's a freak athlete too.
I asked somebody, a college coach that I talked to the other day, and he said, we're sitting here looking at Cam Newton on TV. Yeah, he was like, Cam Newton was like that, and he said Tebow was like that.
Yeah,
and when you're in the company of those guys as a running quarterback, that is about as good as you can get, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Cam just got his jersey retired for a reason.
Not bad.
All those guys are tremendous football players, and were tremendous football players in their career. And, Lenoris definitely has that trajectory to be on that pace as well.
Well, and I think I remember a lot of the comparisons that were made to sellers coming out of high school were a lot of Jalen Hurts type of comps. And obviously, again, very good company. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback now, and leading one of the best teams in the NFL. So it makes a lot of sense when you group those guys together for what they're able to do from a strength standpoint, and you obviously see it on display with some of the crazy, unreal plays that Sellers makes. And we watch that from our perspective, saying, how did he dump 300-pound edge guy over his shoulders and keep on running? Like, when you see him make those kind of plays, what is your thought process on how he does those things?
How? Pretty much. Just how did he do it? I mean, he's sprinting towards the sideline. There's a 300-pound dude that tries to tackle him and jumps on him, pulls his shoulder pad down. Not only does he not fall, but he stays on one leg, breaks the tackle, and then runs for a first down. Like, I think my leg would have snapped in half.
Did you hear Kamari? I don't know I think you're talking about the Kamari Copeland play, but the guy from Virginia Tech, Kamari Copeland.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
He's on the freaks list.
Yeah,
Bruce Feldman.
I played with him when I was at Tech, too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good player, right? And, like, probably an NFL dude. And he was just like, hey, I mean, he was talking about it on that podcast. He's like, I mean, he's big and fast.
Same thing, like,
yeah.
I want to say it was Texas A&M last year.
Yes.
I was here, and he broke that tackle in the backfield and then ran all the way to the right, back to the left, and completed the ball down the field 20 yards. I was just like, you just can't teach that.
Yeah.
Those are things you can't teach.
Well, the insane thing is you'll see guys maybe with a head of steam kind of show their physicality. His thing is he's standing in the pocket and at times getting hit from the blind side and still just able – he has that just – it's almost a move I only see him do where he just kind of like ducks his head and they cannot hold on to him. Like his strength is insane. Man, before we get out of here, I want to talk about your time here at South Carolina a little bit. And what are you've talked about this before, I'm sure, but what are kind of your best memories, and why are you kind of still connect? Like you say, you've been to 4 different places, but I still see you following the program, interacting with the fans on social media quite a bit. What can you say about your time here, man?
I mean, it was special. I mean, there's so many different memories that I could get into. I mean, I was walking. Me and my dad got in yesterday, and we went to a bookstore that was by 650 Lincoln, and that's where, that's when I transferred here. That's where me and EJ lived. That's where I met Luke, Nick, all the guys on the team pretty much, and we all lived in that same building. Every Sunday we would go to 1801 Grill right there. So, just walking by those buildings just bring back so many memories. I knew if I took a right and went down this street, I could go straight and I'm at 5 points. I could remember those memories as well. I could, there's just so many different things that, went into it. And then as far as football, I mean, just starting at a small FCS school where, we had 1,500 students. Dutch Forks High School stadium was bigger than my college stadium when I first started college. So, just having that opportunity to come to an SEC school, seeing what the difference is in the fan bases, how much they care about football, compared to where I was previously. And then just seeing, once I left, just seeing all of, how other programs are run, how, all of the surrounding pieces, all came together. I would say the closest place was Jackson State. They really cared about their football program as well. And I love that place also. But, there's still things to this day. Like my wedding, I just got married 3 months ago. My wedding was free because the lady running the suit was a Gamecock alum and I had on a Gamecock shirt. Like there's just so many connections. There's endless job opportunities because you're a Gamecock. There's, endless people that you can meet that could benefit you later in your life because, your name happened to be associated with the Gamecocks or anything like that. And that's just something that I've come to notice. Like Gamecock fans are everywhere. And, just having that opportunity to come play here, be a part of something special in Beamer's first year here, and just to see where the program is now compared to then, is just special. And it's just, a blessing just to know that I happened to be a part of that.
So before we let you go here, what happens tomorrow night? You got a final score prediction for us?
See, I'm thinking 31-17. Good guys.
Okay. Nice.
I think everybody in this town would sign for that.
Yes.
hopefully the game kicks off at the appropriate time this week.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, Jason, man, we appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully you have a good time this weekend. Find yourself a high school game tonight, and hopefully it's a fun night at Willie B tomorrow.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. He's Jason Brown, former Gamecock quarterback. We'll continue on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour with Buy or Sell coming up next on your Football Friday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, along with you for a couple more minutes here on your Football Friday on the game before we hand things over to Jay and Terry for the post-game show live at Columbia Craft at 520 Green Street. You can go hang out with those guys from 3 until 6 as they get you set for a full weekend of football. And then tonight at 7 o'clock, of course, the high school football scoreboard show with Elijah Campbell and our guy Justin Hall as well. As we get set for Carolina and Vanderbilt, want to focus in on the keys of the game. Let's go to what Coach Beamer had to say last night on Carolina Calls about the keys he's focused on for his team to come out victorious tomorrow.
Certainly, we've got to be able to sustain drives offensively. They want to play football the way that they do, which is grind the clock down and shorten the game and limit your possessions offensively. So we've got to do a great job of staying on the field and scoring points, but making first downs as well. That'll be a big key. And then obviously their quarterback. I mean, he makes them go, not just the offense, but the whole team just feeds off him. And we've got to keep him uncomfortable and be disruptive like we were last year against him. We affected him last year in the run game and the pass game, and we've got to do a great job this year of doing that as well.
So to kind of spin off of some of the points that Coach Beamer's making there, I'll take this a little bit deeper, that yes, you have to stay on the field because, again, this is a Vanderbilt team that's offense is designed to keep the ball for a very, very long time, eat up a lot of clock, go on long, sustained scoring drives, and limit the amount of times that you touch the ball over the course of the game. So every possession is going to count. And again, if you go 3 and out on your first 3 drives like you did last week against SC State, you can find yourself in a hole that's very, very hard to get out of because by the time you touch the ball for the 4th time, you could be getting dangerously close to halftime at that point in time. You know what I mean? And part of that, or a big part of sustaining those drives, is obviously doing better on 3rd downs. Well, how do you do better on 3rd downs? You do well on 1st and 2nd downs, because if you can routinely set yourself up when you are getting into 3rd down situations, ideally you're getting 1st downs on 1st and 2nd down anyway. You don't even have to get 3rd down to worry about that. But when you are getting in to 3rd down situations, a lot more manageable, as we talk about all the time, to be in 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3 as opposed to 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9, which Gamecocks have unfortunately found themselves in a lot this year. So it's getting 3-4 yards on 1st and 2nd down and set yourself up to have a better opportunity for success on 3rd down. Again, that's something they did really well last year when they played Vanderbilt. Their average down and distance on 3rd down was 5.5, which was the best they had in all of the 2024 season. And guess what? They converted 9 of their 12 3rd downs. That's a clip of 75%. You give me those numbers tomorrow, I feel really good about South Carolina's chances. When we talk about containing Diego Pavia, you got to play disciplined defense, right? Again, going back to the way this offense is designed for Vanderbilt, they're going to try and confuse you. They're going to move things around, shift guys around, send guys in motion, all those kind of things. Obviously when Diego Pavia takes off running, he's going to have opportunities to pitch the ball to guys, short throws, those kind of things. You got to stick to your assignments and make sure you play fundamentally sound football on the defensive side, which I don't doubt that they can do. Again, going back to the offensive side of things, I worry that if the offense can't sustain drives, then no matter how good the defense is playing, they could be gassed late in the game when, Vanderbilt's still feeling fresh and is able to take advantage of them when maybe they're not quite as sharp because the team the defense has been out on the field for so long. And just as important, again, we're going to talk about 3 phases of the game here, win the special teams battle. I know we'd all love to see Vakari Swain return another punt return for a touchdown. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it's all areas of special teams. Punt return, get good field position. Kick return, making sure you're making the most of those. Punting, obviously, when you're doing it, making sure you're pinning Vanderbilt uncomfortably back as far as you possibly can. And here's another thing, too. William Joyce, we haven't talked about him a lot this week. He missed a kick last week. He's not been in he's not been in any true pressure situations yet at South Carolina. I think this game comes down to a late field goal, and I think William Joyce is going to have to step up and make a big kick at a very critical time for South Carolina. We don't know if he can do that yet because he hasn't been asked to do that yet, but I think that situation is going to come up tomorrow. So special teams are going to be very important going up against a very efficient special teams unit in Vanderbilt themselves. At the end of the day, I think this is a good 4-quarter fight. If you're a neutral observer, I think you're going to be treated to a very fun ball game between 2 teams that probably aren't that far apart in terms of their ability and their skill, though I think Carolina is a little bit better here. And I think Carolina grinds out a really tight one, 23-20. Again, I talk about William Joyce having to make a big kick late. I think that's what happens here, and the Gamecocks are able to walk away with their first 3-0 start since 2012. And if so, that'll be a fun Saturday night over at Williams-Brice Stadium. Hopefully not too late. Weather looks good for right now, and hopefully if you're going to be going to the game, you enjoy it. And we have a lot of fun things to talk about on Monday. So thanks for everybody for tuning in for the week. For Captain Dave, I'm Tyler Head. This has been the Halftime Show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Post-game show with Jay and Terry live from Columbia Craft on Green Street down in the Vista. Not in the Vista, over in Columbia. Coming up next here on your Football Friday here on the Game.